Hello everyone. Good to meet you again in Nyambung, a podcast program to get you clicked and connect with me, Dina Praptaraharja, and my co-host, Nadila Amani. Hi Nadila, are you well and happy?
Oh yeah, Bu Dina, I'm so grateful actually that my family and I still healthy, and it's so good to see you, Bu Dina. Today you look very joyful, you look very bright. So I hope that you and your family is also healthy, right?
I'm all well with my family. Hopefully all the listeners of Nyambung is also blessed with health and safety as always. So
Yes.
today is our 8th episode of Nyambung, right Nadila?
Yes, it's true. We are recording this in the 13th of July 2021. We are recording the 8th episode of Nyambung, Bu Dina.
I'm honored to welcome a very special lady who has been my longtime colleague from the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a senior diplomat who now serves as the first women ambassador, Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Indonesia for Cuba, Dr. Nana Yuliana. She's joining us from Havana, the capital city of Cuba. Hello, Ibu Nana.
Hi, good morning from Havana, Cuba, Budina. Hello, also Nadila and all the Nyambung listeners. Greetings from Havana, and I hope everyone is healthy and also safe, because I heard that in Jakarta, in Indonesia, the COVID-19 pandemic numbers is rising. So I pray for all the Indonesian people. Hopefully that we can handle this situation, Budina.
I agree, Bu. We need to pray a lot for our nation and also for the world to get through this pandemic safely.
Okay, Bu Nana, I feel so honored to be able to have a discussion with you today, and I hope I could learn a lot about Cuba from you too. So thank you for joining Nyambung today. Okay, Bu Dina.
Such a prestige to have you. Okay, Ibu Nana, the listeners may want to know how I get to know Ibu Nana. She was very kind to teach several class meetings for Paramadina Graduate School of Diplomacy when I was just beginning at University of Paramadina, and I was the dean director there. And surprisingly, magically, up to date, we are still teaching together for the master degree program. And we teach ASEAN together with Ibu Nana. So that was back 2009 or 2010, Ibu. So that means almost a decade of relationship.
That's true. Yes, I love teaching, and part of my diplomacy work is what I call by edu diplomacy. So how education is also used to be soft diplomacy. So every time I'm assigned abroad, education. Connecting with the universities, with educated people, very my priority also, because from there I can learn and also I can share to the people. That's why I teach. And during this pandemic, COVID is kind of a blessing also, because I can teach online. So
that's true.
Anywhere I'm present, I can share through Zoom or through other media or platform my knowledge and also my experience. So there's a kind of blessing in disguise as well, Budina.
Blessing indeed, and I can learn from you online from Havana, Cuba, a place that I've never been, but today hopefully I can learn more from you, Ibu.
Yeah, I agree, Bu Dina. We can learn a lot from Havana, from the person who is in charge of Havana herself. Bu Dina, of course, with Bu Nana here, we will talk about Cuba. Mostly we are going to talk about Cuba, but can you tell us actually what is our topics for today?
Our plan is to discuss 3 main agendas. Of course, we can always add some more if if the situation allows. The first one will be about Indonesia-Cuba diplomatic relations. The second topic will be about Cuba-US diplomatic relations. And last will be Ibu Nana's reflection on the possible future of Cuba in international relations. Shall we start?
Okay, let's start.
Okay, Ibu Nana. You've been how many months have you been now in Havana?
I've been here for more than 6 months. I arrived here in December 2020. So it's almost 7 months actually. So this is not easy task because when I transferred from Houston, I was a Consul General of Indonesia in Houston before. It was during a pandemic time. So it's not easy to get a flight, and also the suitcases that I had to take from Houston to transfer to Havana. The flight is only allowing me to bring 2 suitcases to luggage. So that's the reality that I had to do. But I adjusted with whatever I have now. So it's great to be here. The weather is like in Indonesia. The food is also like in Indonesia, the fruits. But of course, with the Cuba condition, it's not easy to get the food and also the medical supplies during this time.
I see. So, in terms of Indonesia-Cuba relations, Ibu, we learn from books. We usually relate Cuba with the deceased Fidel Castro. But what do most people don't know about Indonesia-Cuba relationship, Ibu?
What do people mostly don't know about Indonesia-Cuba relationship? The first thing, Indonesia and Cuba established the relationship in 1960. So actually last year we celebrated the 16th anniversary of Indonesia and Cuba diplomatic relationship. And there is a very nice moment that we celebrated during that time. Indonesia and also Cuba had especially from Indonesia, we had a kind of a stem of celebration, diplomatic celebration of Indonesia and Cuba, showing that this is showing the good relationship, the close relationship between Indonesia and Cuba. Ibu Dina, for your information, Fidel Castro, of course, everyone knows about Fidel Castro, invited President Sukarno, our first president in 1960, and then our president came to Cuba to meet and also to start having a diplomatic relations. So since then, our relationship between Indonesia and Cuba are very close, especially in a political support. And also in economy. In political support, like in United Nations, Cuba is always supporting Indonesia once Indonesia wanted to be the member of international organization, like when we ran for the membership of non-permanent member of Security Council, for example, and then also ECOSOC. So a lot of candidature of Indonesia in international relations are supported by Indonesia. In the meantime, also Indonesia supported Cuba in certain of membership or candidature that Cuba runs in international relations. So it's a kind of mutual support between Indonesia and Cuba in international relations. And also lastly, if you followed the UN meeting regarding the lifting of the embargo of United States against Cuba, Indonesia also supported the resolution. Because in my eyes, also my experience here, the U.S. sanction is also giving a hard time for Cuban people, especially the shortage of food, shortage of medical supplies, and during a pandemic COVID, it becomes worse for that kind of problem that is faced by the Cuban people. Yeah, good. And also the other relationship that we have is in economic cooperation between Indonesia and also Cuba is increasing. Actually, even during this time in 2020, the total of trade volume between Indonesia and Cuba reached 5.52 million US dollar. But it is surplus on our side, around 3.97 US dollar. And then until April 2021, our total of trade volume reached already 5.9 million, which is surplus also in our side. So, but the problem is because there is a embargo, usually the business people of Indonesia and Cuba, they use the third party or the third country to export from Indonesia to Cuba. You know, the embargo also is even harder during Trump administration. The transaction of trading, for example, is not permitted, and also it applies also to the business people or to the companies outside of United States that have a business with Cuba. But we are quite happy because we can use the third country to export our products to Cuba. Some of our export to Cuba is aluminium, textile, machineries, and then mechanical parts, and also electrical parts, television. We can find television here produced by Indonesia. And also footwear and furnitures. So some of food and also furniture are the most products that we can find here. And in the meantime, also in the past, we used to import sugar from Cuba. But at the moment, Cuba experience difficulties also in sugar plantation, so they cannot export to Indonesia and also to other countries as well. So those two are the priorities of our relationship between Indonesia and Cuba. The rest is, of course, I try to engage with the people. People-to-people connectivity is very important. So I engage with universities here. I went to Camagüey, I went to Holguin provinces to connect with the universities here. But this is because still COVID time, the online education is still running in Cuba. And also we both Indonesian musician and also Cuban musician, we were presenting together in celebration of International Music Day on the 21st of June. So I invited the best and the popular jazz musician from Cuba, and then jamming also with, what's the name at the time? Elo. And we celebrated in Ambon, but it was all done through virtual. Yes.
Okay.
Right. So those three things that we are doing here. We don't have so many Indonesian people here. We have around more than 53 Indonesian citizens here. Mostly is a family of embassies, staff, and also we have 7 Indonesian students who got a scholarship to study medical science. And surprisingly, we have some around 15 missionaries for the church sent by Vatican and also by Indonesia. Mostly they come from NTT, Budina, Nusa Tenggara Timur, and they serve and they give worship to Catholic Church in all over Cuba. So I'm pleased to have them also. And we also have a kind of Indonesian student who is helping the mosque in Havana. There is one mosque in Havana. Imagine, even this is a communist party, but they allow also now the Muslim people to pray in the mosque. and also to go to the church. But of course, the interest of the people are not so eager. The experience, communists in the beginning, they didn't allow people to go to worship in the religious places. Yes.
Okay, Ibu. So if we can recap, that means in the 60 years relationship between Indonesia and Cuba, the strongest attachment is the kind of relationship that is based on solidarity, that is based on supporting each other as developing nations. Is that correct, Ibu Nana?
Yes, that's true. We support each other based on the solidarity, of course, and also based on the mutual interest of both countries. That is very important because for Indonesia, we should make friends to every country to get the support of our national interests. And for Cuba, our national interest is the political support in candidature of international organization, and also the economic parts to help the country, to help Indonesia, both sides also to grow together.
Before touching a bit about the economy, I think one issue that will be of interest, especially to young people like Nadila, are issues of education, music. Go on, Nadila, you have your question.
Okay, actually, I'm really interested that earlier you said about universities in Cuba, Bu Nana. I'm curious what field of study is most famous in Cuba for Indonesian students that might want to study in Cuba to learn about?
Well, that is very interesting question. Medical doctors, medical science is a very popular here. And Cuba gave a scholarship for Indonesian students to study medical science. We have 9 students. 2 students already graduated, so 3 coming graduation. And then we have some more to finish their study. The interesting thing about medical doctors in Cuba not only give or educate the nurse or the doctors with the medical science, but they teach also values. The first one is the values, the humanitarian values, and also humanity. So the Cuban doctors are very popular around the world. And also since the beginning, the first year of the university, the students already go to have a practice in the society. Their public health system is very good, I would say, because as I told you, since the beginning, since the first semester, the students are assigned to collect data, and the government design is to put one doctor in every community, maybe we can say in every RT or every airway in Indonesia, and the doctor will go to the house, every house of their neighborhood, and then that is done every week to check the family health, the family health. So the preventive measures of public health policy is very good, and and the doctor has the family record. So meaning that if there is the children, for example, have a certain kind of disease because of the family, they can detect earlier, and also this is to strengthen the public health of the Cuban people. And I want to share also that Cuban also, the government gives scholarship to so many people to study medical science. There are more than 20,000 students abroad from other countries study in what we call by ELAM. ELAM is Escuela of Latin America for Medicine. So this is the first school in Latin America and they give a scholarship to Latin American countries and also to African countries, to Asia, and also even to European countries. And at the moment, Cuba sent 200 doctors and nurses overseas to fight COVID-19. And one of the countries that received the doctor is from Italy. So they send also to Africa, Middle East, Europe. And before COVID, they sent 28,000 Cuban health workers in 59 countries. So if you want to study medical doctors, you have to look at Cuba as one of the example how the medical science, biotechnology is very advanced. I met the ambassador of Mexico in Havana, and we had a conversation, and then the Mexican ambassador said that they sent around 700 students from Mexico to study special medical science. So to be a specialist, they sent to Cuba. So Nadia and Burina, this is a very interesting thing. Even though Cuba is a small country, and I should consider Cuba as not very rich country, but they can give their expertise to other people, and they can send also the Cuban doctors to all over the world. When we had a tsunami in 2004 in Aceh, Cuban doctors also sent to help the victims of the tsunami. I think around 1,000 Cuban doctors sent at that time. And also when we experienced the earthquake, Mount Merapi earthquake, Cuban doctor also helped. And there is a testimony also from our professor in Indonesia. Cuban doctors is different with other doctors that are sent by developed countries. They really go involved with the community. So that is something that is maybe quite different compared with other developed countries that are sending their doctors to our country.
It is indeed important, Ibu, public health, and I agree that from my engagement as well with public health communities, given my interest as well in that area, I noticed Cuba is among the shining star there from where we can learn from.
Yes, that's true. And at the moment, they produce 5 vaccines. They produce 5 vaccines, Soberana 1, Soberana 2, and Soberana Plus. This is for COVID. Yeah? I'm talking about vaccine for COVID. Produced by Finlay Institute, and there are 2 other vaccines produced by CIBG. CIBG is a Center of Bioengineering in Cuba. That is under Bio Cuba. They produce 2 vaccines, vaccine Mambisa and vaccine Abdala. You know what? For vaccine Abdala, the efficacy is 92.28%. So the standard is almost the same level with Pfizer and also with Moderna. And I heard also the news that the other one, the Soberana 2, also reached the efficacy of 92. So this is very high, and they really focus on doing the research on to getting the vaccine to respond with COVID-19. And some countries in America Latin and also Vietnam would like to buy the vaccine from Cuba. At the moment, they are also in the process of registering the vaccine in WHO. So hopefully, we will see that the vaccine of Cuba can be also used through WHO to give to other developing countries. I heard that some of Latin American countries, like from Venezuela, from Mexico, from Argentina, they already start to order the vaccine from Cuba. I'm trying to facilitate the Cuban biopharma with biopharma in Indonesia. We already did a virtual meeting with biopharma in Indonesia, And also I was contacted by one institute in Indonesia. I know that Indonesia now is trying to have a vaccine Merah Putih or vaccine Nusantara. This is an opportunity, I believe, for Indonesia to look at Cuban vaccine also. And in the future, probably we can do a kind of joint production together, enjoying marketing, especially to developing countries like in Africa, in Asia. So Indonesia is not only the users or the consumption from other countries, but we can also do the production for the vaccine itself.
Oh, okay, Bu Dinna, I find it really interesting now. That you are talking about how Cuba is now producing vaccine domestically. So it makes me wanna ask about how the COVID infection situation in Cuba, Ibu. How is Cuba handling the COVID pandemic, and do you think that Indonesia can learn something from how Cuba handled the pandemic?
Cuba can maintain the cases of COVID-19 through certain measures. Until now, actually, since January, since last year, actually, they can maintain and they can reduce the numbers of people who are infected by COVID-19. But since December, when they started to open, there are some imported cases coming in, and Cuba now still closed for the tourists coming to Cuba. And also the cases lately is quite increasing. So far, 245,000 cases, but then the died or the death because of COVID is around 1,579, and of course, compared than other countries, is quite small numbers, but still Cuba should maintain, because the population of Cuba is only 11.2 million people. The other thing that Cuba doing is, until now there is still a curfew until 9 o'clock, and people still should wear the mask even though you walk alone, you drive in the car, so you are still you are mandated to wear the mask. And also, if you don't wear the mask, then you have to pay the fine. Around 1,000 CUP, so it's around $20 US, which is high for the Indonesian, for the Cuban people. Beside that, of course, through the vaccine, Cuba now try to control the spread, and until now, most people already, around more than 50% of the people already get the vaccination, and they target until the end of the year, they will give the vaccination to the whole people. And for Abdallah, the vaccine is done in 3 doses, and not 2 doses like Pfizer and also Moderna or Sinovac, but it is 3 doses. So that's what the Cuban are doing at the moment. And for your information, also the health program here, for the Cuban people, if you are sick and you are hospitalized, everything is free. Everything is free for the hospitalization, for the medicine, is all free. There are 2 things that you have to know, that for this small country, education is free. Even if you are going to take a master degree or Ph.D. degree, is free for the people of Cuban until doctoral degree. You want to be a professor, whatever, is a free education. I mean, the government doesn't charge anything. And also for the health. For example, you get the operation, you want the medicine, you want the MRI, etc. It's free. They don't charge the people. So that's why life expectancy in Cuba is very long. I noted that from WHO, the data from UNDP, also life expectancy in Cuba is 79 years old. This is the data in 2019. And this is a kind of surprising because in United States, life expectancy is also 79 years old. So almost similar with the life expectancy in a developed country. In Indonesia, life expectancy is 72 years old. So I think the contribution of the health system is also great and big in helping the people to live longer. Yes.
Okay.
Go on, Ibu.
Okay, thank you, Ibu. So the more and more you tell me stories about Cuba, I'm so enticed to learn more about the country. One of the things I can conclude so far is that even though Cuba is isolated, punished for whatever it is that the country is adopting, Cuba remains resilient. So I would like to perhaps hear your thoughts, get your description about how at the political levels this Cuba is running its governance. All I know is that it's centralized political system. It just have a new leader, the former Vice President Miguel Diaz-Canel. But how is he as a leader? How is he being perceived by the people? Is he just as charismatic as the previous leaders? Just your own take on it.
Well, as you know, that Cuban is a communist and socialist country. The state control everything, and also the business, the economy is also controlled by the government. And since the revolution era in 1959, everybody knows that Fidel Castro was the head of the state, and also was #1 person in a communist party, and followed by Raúl Castro. Raúl Castro decided to step down in April 2021, and the successor of Raúl Castro is President Diaz-Canel, as you mentioned. We only have one political party here in Cuba, Cuban Communist Party, but I heard when I talked to the CP is a kind of LIPI in Indonesia, the research center of Cuba. Well, actually, there is a debate also inside the Communist Party how to make and solve the problem of Cuba itself. But Diaz-Canel is very young. He is a young generation. I think he's around 50s, 60. There is a hope actually that there is a change of policy in Cuba, especially in economy. And the government of Cuba already tried to change the monetary system. As you may know that on the 1st of January 2021, Cuba used to have 3 currencies used by the people. The first one, they call it CUP. This is a Cuban unitary peso. They use peso for exchange, trading with the local people. And the second one is they use CUC. The CUC is Cuban unitary convertible. This is only for the tourist people. When they come here, they cannot use the local people currency, but they have to convert to CUC. And there is another one is what we can use dollars, US dollars. So there are 3 currencies that was used before January 2021. But then there is a confusion for the people with using these 3 kinds of currencies. And since January 1st, 2021, the government decided to have only two, which is the CUP, the pesos, and then the second one is US dollars. US dollars, we use that when we want to buy in the supermarket, for example, then we buy things using US dollars. And then when we go to the local market, we buy from the people, like vegetables, all those things, then we use the pesos. We change US dollar to pesos. But now, June 20, the government of Cuba, especially from the bank, the Central Bank of Cuba, decided to impose the regulation of no US dollar deposit. Why? Because the government had difficulties to save their money in using US dollars in international bank because of the embargo. So, and also the second reason is because there's a lot of black market here. The government fact, one US dollar exchange to pesos is 24. But in the market, in the society, one US dollar equals to 60 pesos. So government lost a lot of money, a lot of inflation, and government cannot control the money in the market, in the public. There are a lot of black market. We just exchange to the people because the people need US dollar, but they don't get a good rate. It's difficult to get the US dollar in the bank. So it's just an exchange from people to people. So now the government decided no deposit of US dollar. It seems like there will be a tendency of using euro in the future, even though the government has not decided very firmly. But when I went to the airport, for example, they don't accept US dollar anymore. They accept euro for buying things. But we still can buy things in the supermarket using US dollar, but US dollar not in cash, but using the card. Maybe just to finish, and there's a transition of using from US dollar to euro. We don't know yet. We are still waiting for the policies of the government regarding the currency. But of course, we face challenges for our own budget in the embassy because we receive the money from our budget from APBN is in rupiah. From Kemlu is for rupiah, and we change to US dollar. We get used to pay everything with US dollar, but now, of course, we have to adjust. But of course, it will lose the value because of the conversion and also because of the transaction fee that will be applied to our embassy budget. So that's what's going on, Dinna. Yeah.
Okay, back to the economic situation, Ibu, in Cuba. What you explained just now gives a very nice description of how Cuba is trying hard to be resilient amid all the pressures from the US. But from the eyes of the Cuban, because they start thinking seriously to use other currency in their economy, and they also continue innovating, creating vaccines of their own instead of importing. Do they actually believe that the US will continue to maintain its embargo and its policy of isolating Cuba in the near future? At least, I don't know, maybe 5 years under Biden. Does the Cuban believe that it will stick with the policy, U.S. Foreign policy of embargoing Cuba, Ibu?
Well, thank you, Budina, for the question. That's a hard question. Actually, U.S. embargo against Cuba it's been very, very long time, even before Fidel Castro. The first imposed trade embargo for arms is in 1958. it was on the sale of arms. That was during Batista regime. Batista regime was before Fidel Castro, but then in 1959, with the revolution spirit of Fidel Castro, he took over the regime starting in 1959. So, but the first imposed trade embargo, especially arms embargo, at the time is in 1959, and then it was continued during Fidel Castro. In 1960, U.S. placed an embargo on export to Cuba, except for food and medicine, after Cuba nationalized American-owned Cuban oil refineries without compensation. So there used to be a lot of American companies in Cuba during Batista administration, or before that. Yeah, they have a good relationship between Cuba and the United States. So there was a time in the history that Cuba, after the Spanish colonialization, was part of United States as a protectorate country. It was the same thing like in Puerto Rico, on U.S. Virgin Island, those islands that are under United States until now. So there was a good relationship at that time, and there are a lot of American companies in Cuba. But then after Fidel Castro took over the administration, that American companies were being nationalized without any compensation from Cuba. That was the start of the embargo, especially on the trade, because Cuba didn't give the compensation to America, especially the American-owned Cuban oil refineries. According to my reading, Ibu, there were 3 American oil refineries before, but now it is owned by Cuban oil refineries. So that was the starting of the embargo, and it was in 1960. And 62, that was actually during the Eisenhower administration at that time. So the landscape of the world was the Cold War, the rivalry of influence between communists and the capitalists, and of course that also influenced the foreign policy of United States to Cuba. So until now, the embargo is a kind of just a common thing for the Cuban people. There is a hope actually, if you follow the UN resolution, that is the expression of the countries to show the solidarity to Cuba. And lastly, the UN resolution, it was the resolution that has been 29 times since 1960. I forgot the year, but that was already 29 resolution produced by United States, but it didn't change anything. It doesn't change anything, and there is only first time that United States in the position of abstain was during Obama administration, and Obama is trying to normalize the situation. He came to visit and met with Raul Castro at that time, and then trying to ease the sanction. At least the tourists from United States is open, and also the transaction, the trade is open. So that is helping the Cuban people to revive their economy. But after Trump administration, at least there are more than 220 measures that Trump imposed to Cuba. Why is it like that, Ibu? It's very interesting, actually. The Cuban politics, the Cuban or the U.S. politics against Cuba embargo is really played by the political elite in the United States. You know, during 1959, it was starting the communist ideology at that time. Why it was like that? Actually, at the beginning, Fidel Castro wanted to ask U.S. for the help, for the arms, but U.S. didn't give. So Fidel Castro went to Russia to ask for help, and Russia helped Cuba. That is the beginning why Castro close to Russia. And then until 1990, before the collapse of USSR, Cuba was helped by Russia a lot. They depended a lot from the Russia for the financial aid and also for the export and everything. So that is the dependency between Cuba and Russia. But after 1990, when the Russia USSR collapsed, Russia couldn't help Cuba anymore. So going back to the U.S. Politics towards Cuba, during the 1959, a lot of Cuban exile going to United States, and mostly they live in Florida. They live in Florida. Until now, there are 2 million of Cuban people in the United States. At the beginning of the years of the revolution, the U.S. gave a very relaxed immigration policy. So Cuban welcome to go to United States. When they stay in the U.S., the U.S. will give permanent resident. When at least 1 year staying in the U.S., then the U.S. will give the permanent resident to Cuban people. And mostly they are in Florida. Ibu Dina, Florida is a swing state. It's a swing state. It is a battleground. In 2020, Trump really need the support of the Floridan voters to support him. And a lot of Cuban, more than 1 million of Cuban, more than 1 million of Cuban live in Florida, in Miami. So Trump will be in the side of the Cuban American who are against the Cuban government at the moment, because mostly they are the exiled Cuban American who don't agree with the communist ideology. Who don't agree with the communist ideology, so they supported Trump a lot, and Trump won in Florida. You remember 2020 the election of U.S. Trump won in Florida. The voters, mostly the Latinos and also the Cuban people, supported Trump. So there is a trade-off, of course, because though are the exile of Cuban American, then the measures of embargo even imposed harder to the Cuban people. But then with the change of Biden administration, actually there is a big hope. There's a big hope before by the Cuban people, because the experience of Obama at that time, to have a normalization of relationship between America and Cuba, then there is a big hope from Cuba and also from some of the Cubans who are in America to normalize and to ease the relationship, at least to lift the embargo of trading, the embargo of remittance, because a lot of Cuban Americans send their remittance to a Cuban family here. During Trump administration, it is limited only $300 every month. But before that, more than 1,000 US dollar. That helps, the remittance helps the Cuban family and the Cuban economy here, besides the tourists from United States. So actually the politics of US in Cuba is also played by the Cuban American, and mostly in Florida. Besides, I have to watch now why Biden still has no movement to ease the normalization. When you heard from Press Secretary Jean something like that, I forgot the name. She said that Cuban foreign policy of U.S. toward Cuban is not a priority yet. It's not a priority yet because U.S. is still focused on their domestic things. Besides also, the relationship with Russia, with China, and then withdrawal of the soldiers from Afghanistan. So those things. But a lot of Cuban American, I would say, they are also in a political party of Republican and Democrat. And those are the ones who are the exile from the Cuba, and those are the ones who are against the normalization of relationship between U.S. and Cuba. The target is actually to make the regime change in Cuba. Regime change, so people, starting to shout out, but they've been living for 60 years like that. So people get used with the shortages of food, shortages of everything, difficulties of life. They are very tough people. They are very resilient with all those experience. So that's what happened actually. This is really very interesting to look at the U.S. Foreign policy towards Cuba and the influence of the Cuban Americans. And it's not easy. If you look at the head of the Bob Menendez, is the head of the Foreign Relation Committee in the Senate. He is also Cuban, and then also some Cubans in Republican and also in Democratic parties that are still opposing. So the political elites in United States have no yet thing to start the relationship between U.S. and Cuba get better. But there are other group also, Ibu. Think tanks have a different opinion. They see that Cuban people are very suffering. And also the business people, like in Kansas City, for example, they want to export their agricultural products to Cuba. But those two groups, they need a lot of support in the Senate and also in the Congress to uplift the embargo. So it's not easy. It's very hard, except if the leader itself, like Obama last time, thought in a different way.
So perhaps you can enlighten us just a bit about how the regular people who just, maybe low middle income in the country survive. What is their source of income mostly?
Well, they rely on agriculture, of course, Ibu, and they get used with the embargo for 60 years. It means it is one generation, if you can imagine. If you were born in 1960, they never experience how good life is. They get used with the shortages, so they don't know the difference between having abundance of food and having a shortage of food. So queuing up in a supermarket, queuing up in the traditional market is just a common view. Apa namanya? Normal in their life. They are very patient and they are very tough to see that. Some people, of course, most of the people, they are government employee, and in Cuba, every month during the Castro administration, every month the people get the extra food, like a bantuan sosial, social security food from the government. Like they get milk, they get eggs, they get rice, they get beans, they get also oil, cooking oil, but very limited. So they can also buy, and I think the government employees, they get paid around 100 or 150 to 200 US dollars. It depends on your level, of course. And they are very educated, Ibu, because the government give free for education. So the Human Development Index of Cuba is in the rank of 70 out of 189 countries in the world. Rank 70, so 0.78. This is the HDI, the Human Development Index in 2020. In 2020, Indonesia rank is in 107. Cuban rank is in 70. They're poor here. Their GDP is less than Indonesia, but their HDI, Human Development Index, there are a lot of factors, of course, for HDI, including the education. is in the rank of 70 out of 189. China is in less than even Cuba. The rank is 0.761. Cuba is 0.783. So it's higher in terms of HDI, Human Development Index. I told you already the life expectancy, the HDI, the Cuban doctors, and interestingly, Ibu Dinna, women in parliament in Cuba is on the second highest in the world. 53% of women are members of parliament. And in the constitution, the new constitution in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, the constitution mentioned that the state, the government protect the rights of the woman to join in any kinds of activities, in politics, in economics, in education, in any kinds of development. So 53% of members of parliament are women. So very interesting to see how high the numbers of the women. And we in Indonesia, I think we already have a special measures like 30% of the candidates of the the pengajuan for being members of parliament should be women, but still we cannot reach the target of 30% of member of parliament in the last election.
Okay. Yes, Cuba has features that Indonesians must be aware of. Far away from us, only about 11.3 million in population, but the fact that the government is trying everything it can to remain resilient with their ideology, with their way of living, despite all the pressures, is deserve monitoring from us. Despite deserve watching from us. It's fascinating to see. So Ibu, if we can offer like the final thoughts about Cuba in international relations. You coming from Asia, and perhaps you also have conversations with other women ambassadors there, seeing Cuba from a different lens now that you are based in Havana. What would you offer as a final points about Cuba, Ibu?
From Indonesian side, we offer so many capacity building, Ibu. Capacity building to help Cuba, especially in agriculture sectors. We offer some trainings through virtual at the moment to help the agriculture reform in Cuba, especially training for the artificial insemination, and then also with data digitalization of agriculture. So we're focusing to help the agriculture of Cuba, so it will be helping their food sovereignty, because in Cuba they call food sovereignty, not like in Indonesia we call food security. So whatever from which country we get the food, as far as people eat, then that's a matter. In Cuba they call it a food sovereignty. They want to be kedaulatan untuk food. The second thing, we also offer them for capacity building in training for their senior diplomats through SESPARLU, Ibu. So through SESPARLU, we are also offering the training for that. And we also give some scholarship, offer some scholarship for the Cuban students, especially in Islamic studies. Because there's one, when I go to the provinces, there's always a mushola and also the mosque. So we offer also, I talked to the Professor Komarudin Hidayat. They offer some scholarship for those the Muslim Cuban who want to study Islam in Indonesia. We also offer them for the undergraduate, master degree, and also Ph.D. degree for those Cuban people who want to study in Indonesia under the Ministry of Education. That is what we offer. In the future, of course, we want to work together with Indonesia, especially with the medical doctors from Cuba, exchange the best practices, the vaccine from Cuba to Indonesia. So it's exchange of best practices and expertise between Indonesia and Cuba. And also, of course, Cuba in international relations. They are very active in United Nations to get the support to lift, to release the embargo. And at the moment, they are also in 2020, Cuba already acceded the TAC, Treaty of Amity and Cooperation of ASEAN. So they become the ASEAN TAC observers also. And also they are members of Cuba in IOM.
International Organization.
Baru mau ya?
Sudah
duduk. Okay. And also Cuba sit as a member of IOM, International Organization of Migration, ECOSOC Ibu. They are also a member of ECOSOC. They're also a member of WTO. Since 1995, they're also a member of IMF and also observer of CARICOM. So they're very active in international relation, in international organization, and their diplomats are also tough, small but very tough. Maybe because the life is also tough in Cuba. That's what I experienced also. Sometimes me and my staff here in the embassy, we couldn't find rice, we couldn't find cooking oil. So our diplomats, Indonesian diplomats who are posted in Cuba, I believe they will be a tough diplomats. So when they are, they finish, I believe wherever they will be posted, then they will be a strong and a tough diplomats like us.
There's a term for that, Ibu, right? Kawah Chandra di muka. How do we translate it into Bahasa? So it's like the eternal testing. Yeah? If you pass that, you become Sakti and very magically strong. Eh? Before we end, we still have two questions I think that our listeners is also interested in. One is from Nadila, and then the other one I'm going to talk just a little bit with Dr. Asep Saifuddin.
Okay. From the economic and the political and the international relation aspect, I believe that Budina already cover all of it because I believe she is the master between the two of us. So I believe it to her. Maybe I want to ask a little bit about social and art aspect, Bu Nana. Cuba that I know until now, and also from you, Cuba is having a really vibrant community from music, from the dancing, from the great food, as you mentioned. And earlier you said that you actually connect musician in Cuba, from Cuba and Indonesia. So do you have any near future plans for events to connect the people from the Cuba or from the Indonesian maybe? Or perhaps next, can you introduce connection in other types of music? I am curious, is there anyone familiar with dangdut? Or traditional music, Indonesian traditional music there, Bu Nana, like gamelan maybe or something?
Oh yes, about arts. Yes, that's very interesting subject. There are two things that you don't know about Cuba. One, salsa is from Cuba. The dance, salsa dance?
Right. Yes, Ibu.
Okay. So if you come to Cuba, you come to Havana, you have to experience and enjoy salsa dance.
Can you?
That's one thing.
Can you, Bu Nana?
Yeah, just a little bit. And the second thing, the Cuban music has a lot of influence from Africa. So Afro-Cuban music, they use a lot of gendang, like in Indonesia also. And jazz is also popular. They have also a jazz festival every year. This is before COVID. I'm talking about before COVID. Yeah. Jazz is popular here. We have Java Jazz. We have Jack Jazz, Jakarta Jazz. That's why I invited the jazz Cuban musician to jam with me. I can share with Ibu Dinna later the song. And when we sang together, we played it in Ambon through virtual. When we celebrated the International Music Day, that was the celebration under the economic creative sustainability of economic creative, Ibu, where Indonesia hosted in 2019, I think, 18 in Bali, the World Conference in Bali on economic creative. So the follow-up of that is development of economic creative. One of the economic creative activities is through music. So I connected the Indonesian Cuban jazz musician with the Indonesian also. So it was opened by Pak Sandiaga Uno at the time, the minister. So Nadia and Ibu Dinna and Pak Asep, come to Havana. You will enjoy the music. You will enjoy also the arts. And also orchestra is very popular here. There is also a ballet. There is Alianzo. There is a theater. Theater that is very popular for ballet. Ballet. So arts is very popular here. Culture also very popular here.
Okay, Bu Nana, I'm also interested about your plans actually to connect the people, Bu Nana. Is there any future plans to maybe incorporate Indonesian music to connect the people there, like dangdut or like the angklung music or gamelan, maybe?
We have angklung here. There is one university in Camagüey that have a big set of angklung. And last 2 years ago, they played in a lot of provinces and also in Havana last year in celebration of the 60 years of Indonesia and Cuba diplomatic relation. The Cuban students play our angklung. We have a set of angklung donated to the university. And then there is one professor, a music professor, who can teach the angklung. And I think last time Mang Ujo came here. Mang Ujo came here to teach them. So we have a big set of angklung. So angklung is well known in Cuba, especially the music students. And for dangdut, there are some songs that quite similar with the music of dangdut. I haven't started yet because this is still COVID and I've been here for 7 months. It's very hard to get contact with the people at the moment. They still, work and also study from home. But in the future, of course, I'll do that. But we also have a connection with the Cuban Culinary Association. We invited them to come here, and I sent also staff to study about the Cuban food, and we introduce also Indonesian food through our virtual. So we did already two videos of Indonesian food through virtual to the Cuban people, and it is translated in a Spanish language. So those are the things that I try to connect with the people, besides, of course, with the university students.
Wow. Thank you for the invitation to Cuba, Ibu. This invitation goes to me, Nadila, Pak Asep, and everybody else maybe, to come visit Cuba. Let's hope the pandemic goes away soon so we can actually come and see you in person.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. I'm going to invite my colleague, Dr. Asep Saifuddin, Kang Asep, can you say something regarding the health maybe?
Yeah. Morning, Bu Nana. Morning, Bu Dina.
Salam kenal Bapak. Good to
Yeah.
see you.
Good
Yeah,
to see you, Bapak.
Okay.
Terima kasih Pak Asep sudah join. Thank you very much Pak Asep. Bu Dina is Dr. Dina is maybe you can introduce yourself also, Bu Dina, and also Pak Asep can introduce so we know each other now.
Yeah. I introduce myself. I'm from Pertamina Bina Medica. It's one of the biggest holding company, state-owned enterprise. You know about the health, especially for the state-owned enterprises. And under the Pertamina Bina Medica, we have 72 hospitals from state-owned enterprises. So in this time, so maybe I want ask to my colleagues, Ibu Nana. Bu Nana, maybe I just want to a question. What can we imitate from Cuba management of COVID-19, in particular, and in the management of health in general?
I think I get the point of from Pak Asep. He was asking about the management of COVID in Cuba. Is that correct, Pak Asep?
Yes, that's correct. Then
Yes.
and then we can imitate it from Cuba in the management of COVID-19.
Yes, in management of COVID in Cuba, as I mentioned earlier, the cases in Cuba since 2020 is around 245,000 people. 200, well, I may say less than 250,000 cases. People who died is 1,579 people who died until the data until today. Right, the data until today is only, well, I don't want to say only. It depends on how big is the population. So people who died because of COVID is 1,579 people. Why only small? Can be small, can be big. It depends on how you look at that. It depends on how big the society is. Cuba imposed special measures, very strict measures. Until now, you have to wear masks in the street. Everywhere there is a police, and the police will remind you, you have to wear masks. Even you walk alone, even you are in a car by yourself, you have to wear masks. I just came back from Miami, from United States. Everybody is already open the mask, especially in Florida, where the Republican is very strong there. And I'm afraid because I wear and people will look at me. It seems like I'm a stranger because I'm wearing a mask. So here, people still wear masks. There's still a curfew until 9 o'clock, until 9 to 5. And then the third one, they limited the flight from international flights. So it's very hard to go out, very hard to get in also to Cuba during this time because they experienced imported cases, especially in January after Christmas. During the Christmas, because zero cases, they started to open the international flights and people came in. The Cuban Americans, they wanted to celebrate Christmas here. So then it started to rise the cases of COVID again. So now they limited, very restricted for the international flights to come in. No foreigners come in. No. It's only a humanitarian flight. They call it humanitarian flight. They can be allowed. Meaning, if they want to see the family or things, so very limited. The other thing, if you go out, of course, you have to get the PCR test. When you arrive at the airport, you get the other PCR test, and you have to stay in the hotel. And then, if you are positive, the result from the PCR test at the airport, automatically the ambulance will come to your place and take you to the hospital automatically. So when you are positive, you cannot stay isolated at home, because at home you cannot guarantee that the people will not spread to the member of family. It's a matter of discipline. It's a matter of building habitual practice for the people. Because if you don't do that, if the government don't do that, people is still relaxed, no symptom, nothing. So you just can get out and then all those things. So it's very hard here. Once you get positive, even there is no symptom, ambulance will come to your house. So in every society, there's always a watch. There's always a watcher that see whether you are having and they will also inform you if there is cases in a certain area, and then they will come automatically to your house to get disinfectant, and then also check everybody's. And then Pak Asep, the public health is also assisted by the students. The students every week they go to every door. They knock the door and check the health of the public. So in the community, they have a kind of doctor in the community that live there. It is assigned by the government to live, and the government provide the house, the government provide everything for the doctor to stay, say in airway misalnya, and every week they will check door by door and get the data. So that is a preventive measure. Preventive measure is very important in a small country like this. I think preventive measures should be also imposed in Indonesia because we have a big population. So to control the population COVID spread, we have to do a kind of discipline and also strict measures. That's the thing maybe that I can share. Yeah, Pak Asep.
So in the Havana implemented lockdown policy, Ibu Nana?
Yes. Lockdown policy also. Yeah.
Also.
But now it's already open. When I arrived here in December, it's still locked down. It's so quiet, empty, nothing. So I feel so lonely. But my friends is always together with me. My husband was here at the time. Now he left to go back to Jakarta. But now it's already starting to open. The restaurant also already open, but only to go for takeaway. You cannot dine in. Yeah. So almost the same like in Indonesia, but the problem is here people are more disciplined and they are afraid. They're more disciplined, I say, because they get used like they're queuing up to buy things, to buy food. In the heat, in the sun, old people 2 hours waiting to enter the supermarket. And once they arrive inside, the food are gone, they have to go home. So it's just a normal situation here.
Yeah. I think the law enforcement,
is enforcement, law enforcement, and also strict enforcement. Police is everywhere here, and they remind you wear the mask.
Thank you, Ibu Nana. Thank you, Bu Dinna.
Thank you, Pak Asep. Ibu Nana, thank you very much for letting us see through Cuba today. Although there are 13 hours apart in terms of time difference between us, you already turned my senses on a country so far away. We can see your passion as well. Indeed, you have high passion to make the most out of your appointment. So we wish you the best for your duty in Cuba. I'm sure you do very well and make us proud, Ibu. Thank you so much, Ibu.
Thank you, Bu Dinna and Nadila, and also Pak Asep for having me. in this podcast. I wish we could do Zoom also because I want to show or share screen how Cuba looks like and their music and their beautiful places, so you can also have a kind of idea how Cuba looks like.
Excellent. We'll consider it in next opportunity, Bu.
Yes, okay. Yes, Pak Asep, I'll wait for your invitation. Also, maybe I can talk to your students as well about the Cuban medical doctors. We have also some students. We can invite students of Indonesia so they can share also about the medical education system in Cuba. Thank you, Ibu.
Thank you so much, Ibu. Sampai ketemu. Stay safe.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Ibu.
Thank you so much,
Bye, Ibu. Thank you. Terima kasih, Pak Asep. Pak Erwin, terima kasih juga, Pak Erwin.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for your support once again. Our podcast is available at YouTube and Spotify at Nyambung with Dinna Praptora Harja. Make sure to send us your questions or your thoughts through YouTube comment section. And if you enjoy the episode, don't forget to like, share the link to your community, and subscribe so you make sure you don't miss our contents because we post every week.